Hello, everybody. So this is going to be a different video where I'm just going to be reading an excerpt from my story that I am currently making. And I should probably tell you guys a few disclaimers here. There are going to be some tense errors, so like past tense, present tense, future tense, all that. There's going to be some tense errors because initially I didn't know what tense I wanted to write this story in. So keep that in mind for the beginning part. And then the second part, this only has about 3 chapters, so bear with me here. And I think, yeah, let's just get into it. So I'm going to set you guys down. This is basically going to be an audio-only experience, so just put this in the background or something. So let's go. The Legend of the Pinton Stones. Prologue. Today, I will be telling you a story of love. Love can be hidden in plain sight, but also unbelievably obvious. Love requires sacrifice. Love is a choice. Love is understanding. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is all of these things and more. This story is one of the many love stories people talk about for generations. A story about a relationship bounded by fate. A fate of grief. This story begins in a time so far in the past, it has been recalled as a myth. This world was once ruled by a powerful ruler. A ruler who seemed to be an unstoppable force. This ruler was once a regular person living within this world. But through unconventional means and a desire for love, he rose to power and became the first ruler of the entire world. At first, all seemed well. He treated every person under his rule with a pure heart. But as years passed, he became increasingly evil and used powerful forces on anyone who dared to threaten his authority. The brave few that stood up to the king never lived to tell the tale. But one day, the personal guard of the king stood up to him in a brave, heroic manner and slew the king. After the king died, the world had no ruler and became governed by their own rules and civilizations spread across the globe. After slaying the king, instead of taking the mantle of king, our hero dismantled the kingdom and pursued a quiet life. All of this leads us to our current time. 3 years after the death of the king, in which our hero continues his search for a place to call home. Chapter 1. Our story begins with our hero scouring through a dense forest of maple and oak trees with colored leaves falling in the autumn air. The sky is clear and the sun is nearing its sunset. He progresses through the forest while climbing over stumps, jumping over tiny crevices in the ground, avoiding caves, and fending off any wild animals that dare to approach him. He eventually progresses far enough into the forest to start to see the end of it. As he's about to reach the end of the forest, he hears some rustling of leaves in the distance. He stops in his tracks and unsheathes his sword, prepared to fight whatever it is that may sense his presence. The rustling of leaves gets closer. Our hero cautiously moves forward towards the rustling sound. He braces himself for the worst possible outcome. He approaches the sound of rustling leaves, and as soon as he stops in front of the sound, the rustling stops. He stands there, staring at a small pile of orange and red leaves. After waiting for a few seconds, a brown and white tabby cat appears out of the leaves. The cat looks up at our hero and raises its back, perks its ears, and starts to hiss. After noticing that the source of the sound was a tabby cat, our hero sheathes his weapon and kneels down on the red and orange leafy ground. He reaches his hand out toward the cat. "Don't worry, little friend. My name is Tlapeno. I will not hurt thee," Tlapeno proclaims. Tlapeno walks over to a tree right next to him and shifts his position to be sitting down on the ground in a crisscross position with his hand still reaching out toward the cat. The cat holds its stance, swiping at Tlapeno any time he proceeds closer. "Ah, I think I may know what thou may desire," Tlapano said. Tlapano takes off his brown leather satchel and searches the contents. He opens a pocket within the satchel that houses a plethora of raw cow meat. He carefully pulls apart a tiny section of a tenderloin. He puts away the meat into his satchel and closes the satchel up. He redirects his attention toward the tabby cat, who is still quite angry at Tlapano, and attempts to give the piece of meat to the scared creature. The cat slowly starts to lift up its ears and lower its back. The cat carefully leans in to smell the piece of meat. He takes a tiny nibble of the meat. Tlapano rests the piece of meat on the ground and patiently watches the cat eat away at the meat. Once the cat finishes its meal, it looks up at Tlapano. He slowly reaches his left hand out toward the cat. The cat takes a tiny step away from him and hisses. Tlapano continues to stay patient with the cat and keeps his hand outreached towards it. The cat notices that Tlapano won't budge an inch toward or away from it, and cautiously takes tiny steps toward him. It approaches the tip of Tlapano's fingers and sniffs. It then stands still, waiting for Tlapano's next move. He carefully puts his hand on top of the cat's head and starts to pet it. The cat immediately nudges its head on his hand and allows him to pet its entire body. The cat moves around Tlapano, smelling his satchel, smelling his brown shirt, smelling his silver royal night greaves, and then eventually steps up onto his lap. The cat circles around and then lays down on Tlapano. It closes its eyes and begins to purr. Tlapano stays with the cat a while, petting it. "Glad to see you finally embraced my warm, loving demeanor, little one," Tlapano said with a slight smile on his face. Tlapano looks around him, admiring the autumn forest scenery. He glances between the trees in front of him and sees the end of the forest. Through the trees, he sees the sun setting in the clear orange sky. He admires the sunset for a while. He looks down at the cat, who is now sleeping comfortably in his lap. He leans his back on the tree he is sitting in front of, begins to close his eyes, and dozes off. After dozing off, he then opens his eyes almost as soon as he fell asleep. He wakes up in a field of golden grass, with the wind swaying to the right of him. He stands up and looks around at the scenery. "Well, perhaps this is a dream," Tlapano said. He looks around some more, until eventually seeing a figure directly in front of him. He walks toward this figure and starts to make out that it is a man in king's robes. The man has thick, dirty blonde hair, very few wrinkles on his face, and a lean physique. He approaches this figure until he is directly behind him. "Excuse me, sir, where might I be at this moment?" Tlapano asked. The man in robes slowly turns around to face Tlapano. Tlapano's eyes widen as he realizes who he is standing behind. He backs away and attempts to unsheath his sword, but realizes that his gear was stripped off him. He puts his fist up and prepares to fight the man. "What art thou doing here, your majesty?" Tlapano asked. The man motions for Tlapano to put his fist down. "Do not fret, Tlapano. I mean you no harm. In this realm, we are but mere spirits," the man proclaimed. Tlapano slowly lowers his fist down with a confused expression on his face. "I'm sorry, your majesty. Thou hast said that we are spirits? If I recall correctly, I do not think that I am dead," Tlapano said with a concerned expression on his face. The man develops a small smirk on his face. He shifts his posture to the side and looks up in the bright and sunny sky. "The only one dead in this realm is me, Tlapano," the man said as he turned his face toward Tlapano. Tlapano, still confused, says to the man, Your Majesty, you must forgive me, but I do not have the faintest idea of how I even ended up in this realm. The man turns his entire body toward Telapano. He walks a few steps forward to the point of being directly in front of Telapano. He stares deep into the calm, sky-blue eyes of Telapano. Please, call me Grappino. I'm no longer king anymore, so it makes no sense at all to continue calling me by my former title. The only reason you are here is because I have used some of my power to communicate to you through your dreams, Grappino said. Well, if that appears to be the case, why hath you decided to communicate with me now? Telapano asked. Grappino shifts his head to face the golden, grassy ground and crosses his arms. He sighs. Telapano, to be truthful, for the past 3 years I've been in pain. I'm in pain because I left my kingdom in a terrible, divided, and damaged state. All the people under my rule suffered because of my corruption. Now I mourn over a kingdom that no longer exists. Telapano, without you, those people never would have known the feeling of freedom. I thank you for all that you've done for those people. They never deserve to be under such a harsh rule. One of my many regrets is the fact that I'll never be able to apologize to any of them. My people will forever see the rule I had as corrupt. If I hadn't been so selfish with making that wish, all of this would have been avoided, Grappino said tearfully. Telapano raised his eyebrow and focused his attention on Grappino. He hesitated to say his name. Grappino, what dost thou mean by you making a wish? Telapano asked. Grappino looked up, rubbing the tears out of his eyes. Oh, forgive me, Telapano. I hadn't realized I said that out loud. I made a wish a long time ago to rule over this world with the utmost care and respect. I wanted to govern the world fairly and make sure this world was a utopia, Grappino said. Telapano developed a puzzled expression. He pondered Grappino's words with curiosity and confusion. What did Grappino make a wish to? Where did he find whatever it was that granted him his wishes? How did he obtain this power? These were the questions Telapano pondered. When did thou make the wish? Telapano asked. Grappino looked blankly into Telapano's eyes. 20 years before my kingdom was established. It wasn't too much time before you would eventually be born as well, Grappino said sternly. After Grappino finished speaking, Telapano started to slowly rise into the air. Telapano's eyes widened and his mouth dropped. Grappino, what is happening? He concerningly asked. Grappino looked up at Telapano and smiled. My boy, you are waking up. I know what I've said to you with the short time we had might have been too much, and I apologize for that. Telapano, I know you may never forgive me, but from the bottom of my heart, I am sorry. Sorry to you and my kingdom. Now it's time for you to wake up, Grappino said. Telapano started rising much quicker into the air. He looked down toward the ground and saw that Grappino was a tiny figure. He looked back up toward the sky, and the sky started to light up with a blinding light. Telapano slowly closed his eyes. Once his eyes fully closed, everything went black. He wakes up in the quiet forest. The sun is still setting, although most of it has already vanished. A tiny crescent sliver of the sun is still visible. He looks down at his lap and notices the tabby cat is still laying down. Little friend, I must get up. I'm going to have to move thee. Telapano carefully picks the cat up, who slowly opens its eyes and puts the cat in his leather satchel, with the front flap open for the cat to peep its head through. Telapano walks to the end of the forest. After exiting the forest, he immediately notices a deep valley. Within the valley, there seems to be a large village. Well, little friend, it seems we won't be sleeping in the middle of the forest after all. Let's be off, Telapano said as he carefully trekked down the valley. Chapter 2. The sun was starting to set on a beautiful dandelion-filled valley. The flowers swayed in the cool autumn breeze. This time of day seems to be the most peaceful every single time, Tlapano proclaimed with a relaxed sigh. The village was just a few meters away from Tlapano. The town had a giant silver metal alloy arch with the words, "Welcome to Memorisha," written on a piece of wood at the climax of the arch. The outer perimeter of the town had cobblestone walls surrounding it. As Tlapano walked toward the town, the ground started merging into a gravelly path leading towards the entrance of the village. Oh my, this town seems to be almost as grand as the town square, Tlapano said. He and his feline companion ventured into the village. The tabby cat peeped its head out of Tlapano's leather satchel, looking around with hopeful eyes. Tlapano paused to look at the welcoming on the climax of the arch. He then proceeded through the village. Immediately, Tlapano noticed the beautiful architecture of the town. The houses were made with a sturdy red brick structure. Every house had an oak door and windows. Most chimneys had smoke coming out of them, and children ran around the houses with smiles, seemingly playing games of tag. The path continued forward until forming a circle around a grandiose fountain in the middle of the town. The path was lined with gas lamps that had an orangish-yellowish hue encased with glass seals. Before Tlapano could venture any further, he was stopped by a guard. "Hello, sir. Are you new to this village?" the guard asked. Tlapano turned right to face the guard. The guard had a plain beige shirt with leather trousers. His hair was brown with a dosage of dirty blonde mixed in. His eyes were dark brown. The guard had a spear in his right hand, holding it upright. "Yes, sir. I don't recall ever venturing into this fine village." "Art thou the guard of this village?" Tlapano asked. The guard looked at Tlapano with a puzzled look. "Before I answer the question thou has proposed, have you studied your dialect at all? You're using Old English, not modern English," the guard said with a slightly passive-aggressive tone. Tlapano was taken aback. "Oh, sorry, sir. I've studied modern English before. My Old English dialect seems to slip through the cracks frequently. I apologize," Tlapano said. The guard scoffed. "It's okay, Old English boy. Nothing to worry about. Now to answer your question, yes, I am one of 8 guards to this village. The other guard that guards the south gate here is currently sleeping. He is currently off duty, and I am, of course, on duty," the guard said. Tlapano nodded his head. "If you don't mind me asking, how long has this town been around?" Tlapano asked. "This town here has been up and running for about 2 years now," the guard said. Tlapano looked around and noticed the plethora of houses ahead of him. "This town is quite big. It might be one of the biggest towns I've seen in the past 3 years," Tlapano said. The guard smiled. "Well, one big reason this town has so many people is because we got one of the resistance leaders as our mayor. He had so many people that loved his leadership that they decided to follow him and settle here," the guard said. Tlapano jerked his head to intently focus on the guard's face. "Resistance leader? Who is that?" Tlapano asked. "The name of our mayor is Plummin. I usually like to call him Mayor Plum, but if you ever see him, do not tell him that I told you that. The guy's a nice guy, but I really don't want him knowing I gave him a nickname that pokes fun at his last name. Speaking of names, my name is Jack. What's your name?" Jack asked. Tlapano smiled. "Well, nice to meet you, Jack. My name is Tlapano," Tlapano exclaimed. Jack's eyes widened and he looked taken aback. You mean Tlapano? The king's personal guard?" he asked with awestruck. "Yes, that's me," Tlapano said cheerfully. Jack extended his left arm out toward Tlapano. "I've never seen you in person, sir. If I had known it was you, I would have been a little bit more professional with my demeanor. Please forgive my unprofessional and condescending behavior. It is an extreme honor to have you in our village, sir. You are a role model for each and every one of us here. What you did to set all of us free from that tyrannical rule will be honored by everyone in this village forever, Jack excitedly exclaimed as he shook Telapano's left hand. Telapano chuckled. Well, I appreciate the words of praise, Jack. You were completely fine. I wouldn't put it past you to act that way to an outsider that you can't completely trust yet. And hey, I don't deserve all of the credit for what happened. I had help from amazing townsfolk like you. All of you are the real heroes, Telapano said. Telapano yawns and looks towards the fountain in the town square. Does this town perhaps have any inns? Telapano asked drowsily. Yes, we do, sir. If you make your way down this gravel path and go right, past the fountain, you will see a bigger, wider building different from the rest here. It will also have a giant label that has the words inn on it too. So it will be difficult to miss, Jack explained. Telapano looked back at Jack and shook his hand once again. Thank you, sir. I believe this is the moment we depart. I will be heading toward the inn for the night, Telapano said. Telapano walked along the gravelly path, passing the gas lamps and brick houses along the way. He passed 4 houses until finally reaching the town square. The town square was simple in design. The gravel road formed a circle around the giant stone fountain, with parts of the road splitting north, west, and east to more housing. Telapano walked toward the stone fountain. The fountain had a pillar in the middle with a curved aesthetic carved into it. The tip of the fountain pillar opens up like a flower bud, and the water flows down directly into the fountain pool. Telapano approaches the fountain and sits down on the base of the fountain. He takes off his satchel and breathes in a sigh of exhaustion. His satchel begins to move, and the brown and white tabby cat nuzzles its way out of the satchel. The cat carefully looks around and then starts to sniff the air. It then proceeds to walk to the north end of the fountain. Telapano stands up, grabs his satchel, and follows the cat. As Telapano approaches the north end of the fountain, he notices a woman sitting down on the base of the fountain with her eyes closed. The woman has long, beautiful golden brown hair. Her face is rounded with an acute, upturned nose. Her lips are full and pink, and she's wearing a dark green dress with a white blazer. As Telapano approaches the woman, the tabby cat jumps up on the woman's lap. She opens her eyes, which turn out to be a beautiful emerald green color with a rounded form, and looks down at the tabby cat on her lap. She develops a soft smile and gently strokes the cat's chin. Oh, Rasper, I thought I'd lost you, the woman said while holding back her tears. She puts her hand around the face of the cat and leans in directly towards the face of the cat. Rasper, promise me you'll never do that again, okay? I searched for days trying to find you. I'm so happy you're back, the woman exclaimed while softly crying. She gave the cat a kiss and let go. The cat meowed at her, then curled up into her lap and loudly purred. The woman continued to smile at the calm and content tabby cat. Telapano observed this and walked toward her. He reached into his satchel and pulled out a clean white rag. He motioned his hand toward the joyfully tearful woman. She looked up from her lap and focused on Telapano. She saw a lean and muscular man with thick, dirty blonde hair, whose face had a slight ovally structure. The eyes were a sky blue shade with a rounded form. The lips were full and pronounced, and the nose was a straight, slightly upturned nose shape. This man was Telapano. The woman stared at the man for a minute before realizing he was handing her a rag to wipe her tears. Oh, thank you. I apologize for you seeing me in this emotional state. I usually greet every visitor and townsfolk with a smile, and it seems I let myself get carried away with my emotions, the woman said while wiping away her tears. She attempted to get up from her spot, but looked down toward her lap and noticed the tabby cat, Rasper, sleeping peacefully on her lap. Telapano noticed this, then decided to sit down next to her, so the cat could continue to sleep peacefully. The woman smiled and motioned her hand toward Telapano. I'm Kawina, by the way. And as I'm sure you saw from whichever entrance you came through, this town is Memorisha, Kawina said with her arm outreached. Telapano reached out his right arm and shook Kawina's hand. I'm Telapano. It is a pleasure to meet you, Kawina, he said with a half-grin expression. The two lowered their hands and stared at each other. After walking into this town and learning of its name, I've become curious as to what it symbolizes. Dost you perhaps know what it means? Tlapano asked. Kawina gave an initial puzzled reaction to Tlapano's broken English, then shifted into a cheery expression. The name Mamorisha symbolizes a time before the kingdom, a time where people were able to freely come and go as they please, a time where the world wasn't ruled by an evil, powerful force that punished the people, a time where people lived peacefully and coexisted with each other joyfully. This town represents the memories of what life used to be before the kingdom. This is home, Kawina said. Tlapano looked around him. He saw children running around the gravelly town square, playing with each other. Some kids ran from others in an attempt to escape being tagged. Others were hiding away in small alleyways between buildings to avoid being found by seekers. Tlapano looked towards some houses in the distance and saw families sitting on their porches. Some were fellowshipping with each other, and others were sitting in comfy rocking chairs while gazing into the dusk sky. Tlapano looked directly in front of him and noticed a brick building that was slightly wider and taller than the others. The building had large windows on either side and had stone steps leading up to oak double doors. The roof had a triangular climax in the middle, with the outer area being completely flat. The roof seemed to be made up of black asphalt shingles. Tlapano pointed toward the building. What is that building down there? He asked. Kawina looked toward the building Tlapano was pointing at. That is Mamorisha's town hall. That's where the mayor and trusted townsfolk officials work. They help to make decisions that need to be made. Most decisions are made by a vote from the townsfolk here, and they also help to make sure the town's safe. My father works there, Kawina proclaimed. What position does your father have in that? Tlapano asked. Kawina chuckles softly. My father is the mayor. Tlapano stares blankly. You are the daughter of the mayor? He asked. Kawina smiled. Yeah. Tlapano immediately kneeled down and bowed before Kawina. Please forgive my rudeness. I had spoken out when there were no orders given to me to speak, Tlapano said concerningly. Kawina looked down at him, surprised. Oh, well, Tlapano, my father isn't a king. You won't need to bow down to him or to me, Kawina said. Tlapano's cheeks started to turn red. He shot up on his feet and looked at Kawina. Sorry, Kawina. I don't think I've ever been informed on formalities when it comes to mayors, or any ruler of a town for that matter, Tlapano admitted. Kawina outstretched her right arm and motioned for the two of them to walk toward the town hall building. Well, shall we go make a visit to my father? She probed. Tlapano nodded, and the two of them progressed toward the town hall building. After progressing in a northward direction, the two eventually reached the building. She opened the right oak door, and the two ventured into the town hall. As soon as Tlapano set foot inside the building, a few things stood out to him. The first and most obvious thing he saw was an elongated desk with a semicircle carpet in front of it. The carpet was a dark shade of purple, and the desk was a dark oak. On the desk were a few pieces of paper scattered close together, and a quill with ink to the right of the papers. There was a bell in the middle of the desk and two candlelights on the far corners of the desk. A person was sitting in a wooden chair, writing in one of the papers on the desk. This person was a woman with glasses and long brown hair. She glared up from her paper with her green eyes and welcomed Kawina in. Good evening, Miss Kawina, the lady said. Kawina smiled. Good evening, Miss Matilda, she said. Matilda smiled and looked over at Tlapano. Who is your friend? Or is he something more than that? Matilda teased. Kawina blushed. Well, Miss Matilda, his name is Tlapano, and he is my friend, thank you very much. He brought Rasper back to me, so the least I could do is welcome him into our town, she angrily proclaimed. Matilda chuckled softly. I only tease, my dear. Your father is up the stairs to the left in his office, putting his things up for the night, Matilda said. Kawina's blush faded slowly as she started to develop a smile. Thank you, Miss Matilda. I hope you have a great rest of your night, she said softly. Kawina, with Rasper held in her left arm, grabbed Tlapano's left arm and led him up the creaky wooden stairs. Forgive her, she is my father's desk receptionist who looks over all of the work he has for the day. She's never seen me walk in with anyone before, Kawina whispered. Talapano smiled softly. It's quite all right, Kawina, Talapano said. As the two approached the door at the end of the staircase, Kawina let go of Talapano's arm and knocked on the door. Father, it's me, she proclaimed. A soft rustle of papers could be heard in the other room. Come in, my dear, the muffled voice said. Kawina opened the bronze doorknob and pushed the oak door open. The room was filled with shelves of books and paper lined all around the floor. A man could be seen picking up each piece of paper from off the ground, revealing a hardwood floor. Ah, Kawina, it is so good to see you. He stopped and observed Talapano. His eyebrows shifted to a neutral position. His brown eyes looked Talapano up and down. The bulky man with his plaid red shirt and brown greaves seemed as if he was confused. Have we met before, lad? He asked. Talapano's eyebrows shifted upwards. His eyes slightly widened and his mouth opened. I don't believe we have, sir, Talapano said. The man squinted his eyes at Talapano, then quickly returned them to normal. You sure do look familiar. But anyways, I am Mayor Plummen. Who might you be, young lad? He asked with his right hand outstretched for a handshake. I'm Talapano, sir, Talapano said as he reached his hand out to shake Plummen's hand. The two shook hands. Father, you won't believe who Talapano brought home, Kawina said. Plummen stroked his brown beard, which had some gray strands of hair here and there, and raised his right eyebrow. I see that you have reunited with your old feline friend, but it seems you want to tell me the story rather than just show me Rasper, Plummen said. Kawina nodded her head and gave Rasper to Plummen. He put down his papers he was holding and gently cradled Rasper into his arms. So, as me and Talapano were walking up to the town hall, he told me of the story of how he actually met Rasper. Apparently, he was traveling through the forest above us on the giant hill, and as he was traveling through, he was ambushed by Rasper. This little guy made such a ruckus and had to be bribed with meat from Talapano's travel satchel, just for him to feel comfortable enough to sleep in his lap. Now isn't that something? Rasper being such a feral kitty. Well, I guess it makes sense since he traveled up to the forest and encountered a random stranger he had never seen before, Kawina exclaimed. Plummen stroked Rasper's chin, leading him to start loudly purring. Well, it seems that Talapano unknowingly came prepared, Plummen said. Kawina smiled. Yes, and if it weren't for him, I don't think we would have ever seen Rasper again, she said. Plummen looked at Talapano with an approving smile. Talapano opened his mouth, but before he could say anything, Kawina rushed into him from his left side and hugged him. Tears fell down her face. Thank you, Talapano, I owe you for this miraculous favor you've done tonight, she said tearfully. Talapano's arms were up in a surrendering position. He looked over at Plummen, who gave him a subtle side nod toward Kawina. It seemed he was signaling to Talapano that it was okay for him to hug her back. Talapano nodded and carefully put his arms around her back. She had a slight smell of perfume on. Once she finished hugging Talapano, she grabbed Rasper from her father's arms. All right, well, I think that's a good place to stop for the night. What do you all think? She asked. Talapano and Plummen agreed. They walked out of the town hall, locked up the doors, and headed toward the east side of the village. They passed a few brick houses and ventured past the inn. Plummen walked up to a house just like the others and unlocked the doors. Talapano seemed confused. Sorry, Mayor Plummen. Why are we at this particular home? It looks almost identical to the others, Talapano said. Plummen chuckled. Well, Kawina and I are townsfolk just like everyone else. Just because I hold a position doesn't mean that I am immediately above everyone else. That's how kingdoms usually are, Plummen said confidently. He opened the door and let Kawina in first. I'll be with you in just one moment, my dear, he said. Plummen shut the door behind him and walked toward Talapano. How about we get to know each other a little more? I'll take you to the inn, let them know that you will be staying for free tonight, and as we walk, we can figure out who we both really are, Plummen said. Thank you, sir. You are too kind. I appreciate the offer of hospitality, Talapano said. Plummen laughed. I see Old English is still stuck with you, huh? Don't worry, son. It took me a while to get used to our new way of speaking. And might I say, I do think it flows a little better than Old English, Plumman said. Tlapano agreed, and the two walked toward the inn. So what brought you here specifically to Memorisha? Plumman curiously asked. Well, sir, nothing in particular. I've been traveling for the past 3 years in search of a place to call home. I've been to a few settlements, but none of them felt like home. And today, as you can obviously see, I stumbled upon this village by chance. I think I do like it here, however. There's something different about this settlement that feels more protected, more embracing, more like home, Tlapano said. Plumman put his hand on his chin and stroked it with his eyebrows raised. Well, that's certainly something. I'm glad that you were able to come here, son. Maybe fate brought you here specifically. Who knows? So what was your position in the kingdom? Plumman asked. Tlapano had a shocked expression on his face. The question came out of nowhere. Well, sir, I was a sort of guard in the kingdom. A knight, if you will, Tlapano said. Ah, I see. So you were pretty important, I presume, Plumman instigated. Not really, sir. I just helped around the castle, tried to stay connected with the townsfolk in the kingdom, and overall tried to stay loyal to the king. Until he became deranged. If you don't mind me asking, what position did you hold in the kingdom? Tlapano asked. Plumman chuckled. Well, son, to put it simply, I was the leader of the resistance group. I led them into the castle and stormed through all the way up into the throne room. Surprisingly enough, there wasn't anyone in there besides the king's body, and a lone guard escaping. And if you don't mind me asking, was that by any chance you, Tlapano? Plumman asked. If I'm being honest, sir, I don't know. That was 3 years ago. I left as soon as I saw that the king was dead. I don't recall seeing anyone in the throne room when I left. Tlapano lied. He knew that someone else was in the throne room when he left. He was cautious to tell Plumman everything. Something felt a little off about the conversation they were having. The two walked along the gravelly road toward the inn. The inn was no more than a few feet away from them. The building looked like every other brick building, except with the words Memorisha Inn plastered on a piece of wood directly below the roof. The building was slightly larger than every other building in the town. Ah, I see. So maybe that was the king's personal guard that I must have seen. I'm just glad we managed to form a thriving settlement here in Memorisha. I'm glad I've been able to give my daughter a safe home. I wouldn't have it any other way, Plumman said. As the two approached the steps to the oak double doors in front of them, the left door opened. A man with a tailored red and black plaid vest opened the door. The man had dark brown hair, brown eyes, a sharp diamond-shaped face, and a straight nose. He was wearing brown, baggy greaves with brown shoes. Hello, Mayor Plumman. I overheard some chatter and thought I'd open the door to see who it was. Glad to see it was you, Mayor. What brings you in here tonight? The man said, as he motioned for the two of them to enter. Nothing much, Arthur. Just checking in my pal, Tlapano here, Plumman said as he put his arm on his shoulder. Arthur walked behind the desk in front of the two and looked at Tlapano. Ah, newcomer, I see. Welcome to Memorisha. How long you been here, if you don't mind me asking? Arthur asked. Tlapano looked around for a moment and noticed the walls of the hotel were a white marble color, and the floor was completely made out of a blue and black diamond carpet pattern. Oh, I've only been here for no more than a few hours. I just so happened to stumble upon this place by chance, Tlapano proclaimed. Ah, I see. Well, I hope you find yourself at home in no time. This town really has it all, and is extremely welcoming to newcomers. All right, I got you logged in my booklet here, and you will be staying in room 20B, Arthur said as he handed Tlapano the key to his room. I will cover the payment for him tonight, since he's our guest and all. So, Tlapano, you can go ahead and get yourself situated. Oh, and before I forget, since my daughter seems to have taken a liking to you, I think I should tell you that her birthday is coming up in a few months. She'll be 21 this year. No pressure, but if you want to give her a gift, you can. I think she'll enjoy whatever it is you give her. All right, son, now go get some rest. You look tired, Plumman said. Tlapano nodded and walked up the stairs to the right of him. There were 10 doors in front of him. The first door's number was 11B. Tlapano walked down the pathway and ended up toward the end of the building with room 20B being right in front of him. He looked down to the left of him, beyond the railing, and noticed a kitchen with a few tables and chairs, and a wall in the middle of the room at the very front of the building. The wall was right behind Arthur's desk. Tlapeno turned around and put his key in the lock and twisted it. He grabbed the doorknob and entered the room. The room was simple in design. The wall was made out of oak wood, and there was a bed to the right of Tlapeno and a desk with a lamp on the right side of the bed. There was another smaller space directly in front of Tlapeno, which contained a shower, sink, and a toilet. Tlapeno put down his satchel, took off his knight's greaves, and laid down on the bed. He blew the candle out of the lamp and tucked himself into bed. The bed was super comfortable, and it didn't take long for Tlapeno to doze off. He closed his eyes, and just like in the forest, he immediately woke up and found himself in a golden, grassy field. Tlapeno got up off the ground, and this time he noticed a small, white shack in the distance. He traveled to it and opened the door to find Grappino sitting down on a chair, looking out a window. "Hello again, Tlapeno. I see you've managed to find your new home. How is it?" Grappino asked. "Hello, Grappino. I think it is actually quite nice." "Why am I here, Your Majesty?" Tlapeno asked. Grappino shrugged his shoulders. "I haven't a clue, my boy. Maybe you and I are bound by some type of fate. Maybe you'll need me in your adventure. Who knows? What I do know is that something terrible is brewing. I may be a spirit, but I still possess the knowledge of the stones," Grappino said. Tlapeno seemed confused. What? What do you mean by stones?" he asked. Grappino chuckled, got up from his oak chair, and walked toward Tlapeno. He had his robes off and only had a white, buttoned-up shirt with brown greaves on. He walked toward Tlapeno, put his left hand on his shoulder, and said, "My boy, you are going to find out that you are more important than you may realize. The fall of the kingdom was the first step. There's still much more you need to do. But for now, enjoy your peaceful life. Experience the life of Memorisha. And who knows, maybe you might make a new friend," Grappino said with a smirk. Tlapeno looked at him, puzzled. He looked down at the ground and noticed he was sliding away from Grappino. He looked back up and saw that Grappino had vanished. "Your Majesty? Where did you go?" Tlapeno questioned. He started sliding back faster until eventually he was in the air. He noticed as he was flying up into the air that the shack had vanished. He looked up and awoke the next day.